Alright everyone, so I wanted to introduce you to the latest review of the Ducati Monster 796. Now, this bike I've had the opportunity to rent for a couple days now, get a really good feel for it, and really put it through its paces. So I wanted to be able to cover a couple different topics. We've got looks, we've got engine, we've got handling and cornering, we've got city riding, canyon riding, and highway riding. All those things combined to be able to put together what I hope is a comprehensive review of this bike. So first up, looks. Oh boy. Let's do the walk around, people. So, this bike, I think, is a beautiful, beautiful bike. And what better backdrop than the San Francisco Bridge? Love this. Man, the little, like the single-eyed swing arm, the way that the frame, the red and the black accents, I really, really like that. Even the twin can exhausts, I feel like if you replace them with something just a little bit smaller, that would make the whole like tail section really, really nice. Let's see. Loving the way that the exhaust work goes up in there. You got your two front twin rotor Brembo brakes. Nice little turn signals. On the other side, we have, a adjustable for preload rear shock, and you have non-adjustable front suspension, but it works out. Yeah, got a lot of really good things about this. These little air intake ducts are a nice little extra thing. Let's see. Your rear passenger pegs. One of the things that I really like about this, other than that, is that because of the way the exhaust ductwork goes up under the bike instead of like I had on the 821, I don't have any of the problems I had before with the pegs messing up with anything behind it. So my feet fit really well on both that and the front. But damn, in profile, that rear swing arm, just the way that this whole thing is shaped with this rear cowl that they've added so nicely, I think the whole bike works. And the whole bike works really, really well. Alright, engine. So, as the power point of any good motorcycle, the engine plays a critical part, and this one has got quite a nice one, if I'm honest. Ducati has done a fantastic job with this. I will admit, it's got a very interesting characteristic of being both quite a rough and raw style of motor, while also managing to be pretty smooth on the uptake once you actually get over the fact that it's vibrating the way it does, which is quite interesting. So when I keep it in the rev lanes, like I am now, from about 5,000 to 8,000 RPMs, it's really a fantastically, smooth motor that provides torque at a really engaging pace. So that means that around, in the city, in the places where you would use it most, not actually in like, a racing setting, but your actual day-to-day usage, I think it's a really fantastic engine. Now, it's also a little bit finicky in that it really has to struggle with its, what's it called? It really has to struggle with its end ranges. So at low RPMs, it does lug a little bit, and also you have to remember that the RPMs only go up to 8,500, which is quite a short rev range compared to other bikes, like the triples or the inline fours that can rev to like 16,000, like essentially double the rev range. Now you combine this with a transmission, which is actually quite a good transmission, quite smooth and easily able to click into gear. You'll find yourself shifting quite a lot. But the thing is, because of the torque and the power range, you're probably only going to be using the first 4 gears, which kind of makes for an interesting like up and down the rev range real fast, but never really getting above 4th gear. At least that's what I found. Now, the reason why you won't be getting into 5th and 6th is because when you're in 5th and 6th, that's like cruising, but cruising on the highway tends to lug at those things, and it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't feel good. It feels like it's really struggling, and I mean, we're here at sea level, so this shouldn't really be a thing, but it is what it is. Alright, next up, city riding. Alright, now, city riding. You know, it's surprising, considering how much I like this bike for its canyon carving abilities, but I actually think that this bike is best in city riding. Like, it's a great canyon carver, but it is a fantastic city bike. And the reason for that is because of its strengths. It's a very light, very nimble bike with a tight, torquey, punchy engine. You combine those two things and you get a bike that's very easy to take it from a start and stop. You get a bike that's very easy to get around cars and do lane splitting if that's available to you, to essentially have that, maintain that maneuverability. It's upright, comfortable to be able to sit in, and really it's a great bike to be able to do that. The clutch is very nice and light, which is a godsend in traffic, and it's a very easy thing to be able to just flick around and enjoy in city riding traffic. There's no other really way to put it. I think it's kind of the perfect type of style of bike where you want to be able to go for those quite low speed start-stop situations that you'd find yourself in a really dense city. So hats off to you for making that. The only way that I could say it would probably be a lot better is that the suspension is on the stiffer side, which means that potholes and bumps in the road are a little more obvious, and you can't really adjust that, but you can't win everywhere, and it's something you kind of have to, you just put up with it, I'll be honest. But other than that, its ability to pull from away from the start, its ability to flick between lanes, change direction quickly, and overall just being a light bike, a small bike, means that it's really great for being able to tour around town. Wonderful. What more can I say? Alright, look. In the canyons, it's great. Like, this is so much fun. But there's a couple things. First, even though it's super light, super flickable, just a joy to be able to just really get into the corners, one of the downsides is that this is a lighter bike, it doesn't have adjustable suspension, and I'm a bit of a heavier rider. I'm compressing the suspension a little bit harder than I normally would, which means that even though the suspension is fairly well sorted, I'm actually going to give it pretty good props for that, the whole thing rides a little bit short. Now what this means is that on this bike, when you're getting low into the corners, there is a good chance you are going to hit boot or peg before anything else, before you would on other bikes. You have a little bit less lean angle, and this is definitely, not just because like suddenly riding this bike I'm a better rider, so I'm like, scraping boots and scraping pegs. Like, no, the bike is actually lower to the ground. That was kind of indicated as well by the fact that I flat foot this most of the time. So overall, really fun. Just if you're a tall guy or a heavy guy, just keep that one thing in mind. If you're a light Italian or a girl or something like that, oh, this is an excellent bike for that. Next up, highway. Alright everyone, talking about highway now. So I chose this bridge that we're going over right now because it's quite windy, and there's a reasonable amount of traffic on this most days. Right now it's a holiday weekend, so not really. But right now I actually deal with the wind on the bike pretty well. I'm going at about 75 miles per hour, and the wind is actually very manageable for this. I've also got quite a lot of torque in the rev range that I'm dealing with right now to be able to accelerate, get around cars, and do all of that fun stuff. Now, the one thing I wanted to point out here is, while it's actually got quite a comfy seat, and it's also got quite a lot of torque to be able to accelerate in those higher gears, Doing so in this bike should really be done no higher than, say, 4th gear. And I don't know why, but let's say I shift into 6th, like so. Now, I don't know if you can hear that, but in 6th gear, it really likes to lug at these revs. It's heading at about 4,000 RPMs now. But it really vibrates a lot harder and lugs a lot more. And when I give it like throttle, I'm not really accelerating that hard anymore. So this is where some of the power differences that you might see between this and, say, a bigger monster really come into play, in my opinion, in terms of like usable power. You can't just sit in 6th gear and just accelerate out of the way of anything. Yeah. So, San Francisco, there on the left. So I'm including this part in the highway as well, because right now I'm in like a high-speed corners type of situation, and the high-speed corner situation with this is really quite stable, more so than I kind of expected. I had a bit of trouble with this type of little grooved pavement here, see below us, with the 821 that I rode the last time I was here, but this one just really planted itself well through these high-speed corners. So I'm going about 85 through this, and it really likes to be able to just stick to the path you point it to, which is a nice thing to be able to have on these higher speed corners that you get sometimes on the highway. Alright, so there's one more thing that I almost forgot to talk about, no less important, and that is the brakes. The brakes in this bike are worth talking about because they've both got individual different feels. The front brake actually works very well. It's a very well sorted front brake. Got an adequate amount of stopping power for the amount of, engine power that is paired to it. But the rear brake has an interesting thing going on. There's a lot more play in the rear brake than you would normally have. So to demonstrate, essentially, the front brake, you squeeze, and it's a progressive squeeze. Works exactly the way you would think it was. Good brake feel, good on that one. A little bit grabby at slow speed. The rear brake, if I'm going down, essentially you press, and there's a lot of nothing, pressing far more than you would expect on the rear brake, and then the rear brake engages. But the thing is, the rear brake, just because it is got a farther travel, doesn't mean that it's any less powerful than it needs to be. You can't actually engage the ABS on both the rear and the front brake. They engage a little bit later than you might expect, with a little more force, but they do engage, and the rear brake has more than enough stopping power to bring you to a stop safely or keep you on a hill. All those things. Obviously, not nearly as powerful as, say, the front brake, but the rear brake just takes a little more travel than you would expect, and it's just a little quirk, I think. Maybe the travel can be adjusted. I don't really know. It's not a huge thing. Works pretty well. Alright, as for electronics, here's what you got. On screen, the progressive rev matching. You have miles per hour always on screen. Temperature always on screen. You can have a mode selection for time, one trip. It has a lap timer. I'm not really sure how you use it. And the odometer as well. Not really a lot looking from that perspective, but it's got all the main things you'd probably want. Things that are notably absent: does not have a fuel gauge. I wish I had one of those. Does not have a rev shift timer. It only tells you when you have actually hit the limiter. It does not have a gear shift indicator either. I guess they're all like little things. Alright, so as we ride along here along this beautiful waterfront, seeing the Bay Bridge in the background, thought I'd wrap this up. So, overall, the 796 is a bike I really quite like. It's a bike that I didn't expect to like as much as I did. Now, the reason for this is because it really utilizes its strengths to, I think, its maximum abilities. It's really light, it's quite nimble, and the engine really works in the rev range that you're probably going to be in most of the time. You combine all of those things, and what you get is a bike that's fairly well sorted. It understands its own issues and really deals with them in a good way, especially things that might have normally become a negative, like the fact that it's got non-adjustable suspension. So really, if you keep all of those things in mind, I think this is an excellent purchase. One of those things that would make for an excellent thing in the stable. I know I personally really, really like this bike, and I have had a blast just riding it. And the funny thing is, this started off as a bike that I kind of had as my second choice. It wasn't the bike that I was going to rent the first time through, but now that I've ridden it, I actually like it more than what I had before. And that's not something that usually happens to me, where I'm actually wrong in a way like that. So I think if you guys get the opportunity, check out the Ducati Monster 796. I don't think you guys will be disappointed. And that's it for Mirror Stern. Peace, guys. See you next time. Oh boy, a tunnel, guys. Let's make use of the tunnel. Ready? Ready?